This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another RaceSpotTV Friday Prime Time. And for this season, we're going to be looking at the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, the new Audi TCR car here on iRacing, taking center stage here for 12 weeks of racing. We are on week number 2 here at a small place in Cheshire called Oulton Park. There we go. There's the schedule up on screen for you now. We had a fantastic race last week at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, but now we take some good old, maybe some British TCR car racing here at Oulton Park, and then next week we're going to be heading on to Road America. The rest of the schedule is as detailed there, all culminating in a finale at the Phillip Island Circuit November 29th. But with all of that out of the way, we've got a very special little hot lap here, a track guide put together by Martin Kroenke, and Paul, my co-commentator, will take you through it.
So here we go then, Martin Kroenke, start of his lap here, out of the final corner at Lodge, across the line. You want to keep the car over to the left-hand side here, ready for Old Hall Corner. Late onto the brakes, look for quite a late apex here. The corner then just opens up on the exit. Get on the power, and now downhill through the right, but you want to keep the car to the right as much as possible for Cascades. The sweeping left-hander, 4th gear corner, take as much of that inside curb as possible. Don't run out too wide on the outside because you will get an off-track penalty. Then up over the little rises, onto the brakes. You can see how the car gets unsettled into the island hairpin. This is where you cut through on the full-length track. Now up over Hilltop once again, and we're heading down towards the braking zone for Hislops, the chicane. You're going to be braking just past the 100-metre board, onto the brakes hard for the right, and then the left at Hislops. And then Knickerbrook, the right-hander, 4th gear. Get the power on nice and early. Run up over the curb before you head up into Clay Hill. This left-hander here is Clay Hill. And then we're in towards a double apex right-hander at Druids. You want to get both apexes just nicely. It's important to carry the speed on the exit of Druids. The track rises up and it wants to push the car out to the outside before hitting the brakes hard for Lodge Corner. 3rd gear in this car. Hook the curb nicely before you head on through Deer Leap, and that is a fast and frenetic lap on board with Martin Kroenke.
Of course, you can find the full lap and full tutorial at the virtualracingschool.com. Thank you very much to those guys for providing us with that track guide to show here on the broadcast this evening. Meanwhile, out there on circuit, you do have the very end of qualifying going on right now. Provisionally, it's Cohen Klopman taking pole position, but just as I say that, it all changes. Nebelset gets himself to that provisional pole position as the rest of the second laps file their way through. Still going to be a while before we get ourselves green flag racing here, around about 2 minutes before that one happens. Adecopa Lopez gets himself up into P2 provisionally here, and well, Paul, your pole sitter for now is the only driver in that 126 mark.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good lap from Adecopa Lopez. I used to race against him in a touring car league, so he's a man who knows touring cars. That's the track and the conditions. Not the hottest of track conditions here, so these drivers are going to enjoy that. The tyres will last just that little bit longer because it's just 28 degrees track temperature, 20 degrees air temperature, mostly cloudy. Wind, it's not the fastest wind in the world, but here we are, Little Budworth. What a venue, and yes, I'm biased, but that's the end of qualifying right there, Connery.
Yep, everyone being able to set a lap, so qualifying ends just a little bit earlier. So here is your starting grid for this week's edition of RaceSpotTV Friday Primetime. Cedric Nebelzek in pole position. Ali Lopez starting on that front row as well, with Cohen Klopman and Simon Povey bringing things down to P4. Dominic Olivier there in P5 with David Perez in P6, with Tim Graven and Lewis Goodway bringing things down to P8 on the starting grid. Brandon Hawkin will start in P9 with Jorm Dalmesis Torres in P10, and then you cycle towards the bottom half of your field here. Ariel Bernardi starts P11 with Jorge Augusto in P12. Crendon Guinness there in P13 with Aldo Massa in P14. Nicholas Short will start 15th with Anthony Catt and Jake Johansson rounding out your 17-car grid here today. Those guys will get themselves stacked up behind that Porsche 911 Cup car pace car. There's the great view of your, well, second place starter right now, Adecopa Lopez, Club Iberia. Of course, it's been a while since we've seen Adecopa Lopez here on a RaceSpotTV broadcast, and you can say that for a good couple of names up and down the field. It's Cohen Klopman, also one of them, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. There's your pole sitter in the Rennsport Online car, and well, these drivers getting ready for an intense, we say half an hour race here, but these drivers, they're going to be pushing hard. There's only a short lap around, short warm-up lap, should I say.
Burnouts.
Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to get as much heat as possible into their tyres here, so that they can get those tyres up to temperature, use the brakes as well, try and get some heat dissipated through the brakes and the wheel hubs there. So definitely these drivers, they're going to be pushing hard all the way through this race. Half an hour race as always.
Yeah, absolutely. Just technically two more corners to go, because you have Lodge Corner and the Deal Leap before you get yourself towards that start-finish line then. And, well, just in a couple of moments' time, we'll see that Porsche 911 Cup car dive itself down on towards the safety of pit lane. Field will then be under the control of Cedric Nebelzek. A very quick green flag, very quick on the throttle here. We are racing here for week 2 in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge with these Audi TCR cars. Then down in towards turn number 1. Big stack up there for your front couple of positions. There's been a little bit of bumper barging, door rubbing all the way further back. No one falling foul to a spin early on at this stage though. So we are clear then, coming down in towards Cascades then for the first time. Nebelzek still leads from Adecopa Lopez, from Cohen Klopman. Is a little bit of a fracas behind though. That's Graven and Simon Povey looking to get involved with each other then down in towards the island's hairpin, and that's Povey actually attempting to go around the outside of David Perez, but he's unsuccessful in doing so right now. Still all stacked up coming through the exit of the corner. Will we see 3 wide on the way down towards the turn 5 chicane? That'll be very risky indeed. There's not enough space even to get 3 wide down in towards here, but Povey now still side by side with Graven. Finally files in single file. What a frantic first lap there for Povey.
And this is what you can expect from Oulton Park. It's fast and frenetic. We saw how quickly I had to talk for the hot lap video there. Well, this is proving to be just as frenetic. Brilliant stuff from the start of this race, and these drivers putting on a great display, although one driver off into the barrier. That's Lewis Goodway.
Yep, it is the driver of the number 3 having a couple of issues there down towards Druids, I believe. And let's just see what has happened here up on the replay down in towards the corner. Was it help? Yes, it was help from a driver behind. Didn't quite catch the number of that one, but a spin all the way towards the rear of the field there for Lewis Goodway. And, well, he is a good margin off the rest of the field now. So he'll have to be picking up positions from anyone that falls foul of instance further down the road in this race. But it's so unfortunate there on the first lap to get dumped like that.
Yeah, absolutely. As still battling going on. Klopman and Perez now side by side going through the island hairpin. Important to get a smooth transition off of that hairpin, because you're going to carry that speed up over Hilltop and then down towards Hislops once again. Hit the brakes hard, mind those tyres, by the way. Those don't move. You find that out the hard way around here, I can assure you that. But these drivers now, they're going to find it tough to overtake, especially when they are so closely matched as they are in this split.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're wondering what the strength of field of this race is, it is 5,549, so pretty high indeed by all standards. Perez, though, gets a very good run out of turn 10 then, and in towards large corner then, outside line, a little bit squirrely, trying to get themselves into that corner. Of course, a huge amount of lift-off oversteer here in these front-wheel drive cars. You can really use it to try and pitch it into the corner, but you can overdo it on occasion. Then David Perez again outside the line for that Old Hall corner of turn 1. Still not able to find his way through, but as we ride on board, we start to go down the hill then in towards Cascades for the third time. And, well, these guys currently battling for P3 out there on circuit, starting to lose touch with your two race leaders at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. They're about 1.5 seconds behind here as they head into the island hairpin once again. Perez not making any moves. Oh, I say that. There's big contact between the two of them. Cole Klopman has come off worse. Although saying that, Simon Purvis had to take to the grass there. So we'll get a look at that on the replay then. On board with Simon Purvis. And, well, you look at this. It's a late move. It's not really on. No. And, well, he goes to the outside to Simon, and he's getting forced wide onto the grass. And that costs Simon big because he's down to 8th place now.
Yeah, I think Perez just saw the car ahead of him and just push a little bit wide, thinking then that maybe an opportunity on the inside will open up, and decided to go for it, but no such opportunity was given. There was nowhere near a car's width of space on the inside there to be able to make that one work. So at least for me, that one's all on Perez. That has caused a little bit of concern for a good couple of drivers behind. You did mention Cohen Klopman got a piece of that one as well, but he still seems to be holding relatively strong right now, albeit a good down a couple of positions. He sits in P6 right now after starting in 3rd place, but those are your two race leaders up on screen for you now. That's Nebelzek and Adekoba Lopez. These guys have been stuck together like glue for the first 4 laps of this race so far, and well, with about 0.3 of a second between them at this moment in time, Adekoba Lopez not really letting your Team RSO leader get away a little bit, and well, that was Nebelzek just a slight bit of outbraking himself in towards the island hairpin that time, allowed Koba Lopez to really close up. Yeah,
absolutely, and the thing is, this is a track that punishes you if you make one little mistake, and we saw how last week how Nebelzek was able to pull away early on in the race, but then as the tyre wear became more of an issue, that's when they then started to draw him in back into the race. One thing that will be pointed out, there was a slight alteration this week with a little update that iRacing made, and it's just changed how the tyres behave that ever so slightly. The tyres now warm up just that little bit quicker, so drivers are having to adjust their setups and adjust how they drive this car.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it means that things may be a little bit less sketchy on lap 1 and 2 as they previously were. From what I recall, it was okay in these cars, but in things like the Formula 3 car, it was like basically you're on ice for the first 2 or 3 laps instead of just the first lap like you normally see until these tires get up to temperature. But there we go. Hopefully everyone is a little bit happier with the way things are right now. Still riding on board, though, the driver of the number 1, that's Adekoba Lopez. Of course, if you're new to iRacing, then the driver of the number 1 means he is the highest I-rated driver in this entire field, and that's quite something when you consider the average I-rating here is 5,500. Adekoba Lopez, he's on 8,000 right now, so definitely a big contender on this service. Of course, we haven't seen him very recently, but it's good to have a lot of these very competent drivers back and showing us what they're made of. We had a little bit of a scuffle there further back there. I think that was involving Ariel Bernardi there. We'll get it up on the replay for you now. It was a move down the inside, I believe, or rather a move defended by from Aldo Massa, since it was Massa trying to go around the outside at the hairpin, but it was well defended by the driver of the 7.
Oh, look at this, side-by-side through Druids. He can't really do it, boys. Oh, they're making side-by-side contact as well. This is brilliant stuff. They're still side-by-side. This is Tim Greven and David Perez into launch corner. Don't have any contact, boys. This is great stuff. Oh, another hit check there from Greven on Perez, and Perez staying behind. But now Cohen Klopman, he's starting to look busy as well. All of a sudden, this pack further down, just battling it out for third place. They're giving us some great displays of aggressive driving.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, these Audis, they are built pretty much like tanks. They are TCR cars after all, so a bit of bumper backing, a bit of door barging, that's all fair game as far as these cars are concerned. And Klopman looking to get his hands dirty, perhaps in towards the island's hairpin. It's a middling line on the entry there. Won't be able to gain him anything, though, in this situation. It's basically a 5-car pack that's all stacked up here for that final podium position, and Greven has to be a little bit concerned with what he's seeing in his wing mirrors right now, but needs to remain calm under this much pressure.
Absolutely. As well, Klopman, you would say, is a little bit out of position after that incident down at the island hairpin, so he's trying to make his way back up, and he'll want to get to David Perez to maybe see his comeuppance happen, but I'll tell you what, he's got his hands full, and he's got a really tricky task ahead of him. And speaking of ahead of him, Perez runs wide through Druids.
Yeah, and might put him under threat from Olivier then down the inside at Lodge. There's a car's width of space to work with there. He hasn't exactly got himself quite alongside just yet, and now he comes under threat himself from Klopman behind on a little bit of a recovery drive after contact with another driver in the early part of this race. He's going to get squeezed out there. There's a bit of contact there coming up through turn 1. Up and under move then for Klopman available on the way down towards Cascades. It is the outside line coming through the left-hander then. And, well, Olivier's gone very, very deep. Here comes the driver of Hawkin now down the inside of Klopman. So just as Klopman was looking to gain a position, he loses one.
Yeah, Brendan Hawkin, we saw how well he did in the second half of the race last week. They're still battling out. There's still bumper bashing going on in the hairpin. They're all coming together, and they're slowing each other down by tripping over each other. This is not what you want to be doing. You want to be working together to a degree to not lose the guys in front of you, and that's exactly what they're losing. They're just losing that little bit of touch on 4th place David Perez now.
Yeah, it's currently 4 seconds between P1 and P3, and then a further 0.7 of a second back before we get to P4 David Perez. So that's how much time these guys are losing by getting a little bit aggressive like this. But you have to understand sometimes the perspective of drivers, especially like Cohen Klopman, where they've dropped back early on. They want to try and get through the field as quick as possible, back up to at least where they qualified. But it's seemingly very, very difficult for them at this moment in time, where you can really go for close quarters racing in these sorts of cars, but that just makes it very, very difficult to try and file their way through if there's brick walls being thrown up all around.
Absolutely. I mean, this track is the perfect track to be able to defend around, and it's a such difficult track to overtake, especially with these wide cars, because they are quite wide cars, are these TCR cars. Here's the move from Hawkin then. He's looking to the outside. You don't always want to be in that position in the island hairpin, though, because you're on the outside, you got the wider line, and that opens up Cohen Klopman to be able to make a move, and you get picked up that little bit of dirty line offline there. So we're almost at the halfway point of this race already, Connery. This is brilliant stuff so far. Okay, there's not too much overtaking, but it's really close, hard-fought racing here.
Yeah, and I get the feeling it'll get even closer as soon as as soon as this race draws to a close and these battles are still stuck together. Maybe we will see a little bit more desperation come out from a couple of drivers down your field. But riding on board then with Brandon Hawkin, he's a driver that has made up a good couple of positions early on. He's up 3 positions from where he qualified. He's qualified in 9th. He's up into 6th place now. You can see those lap time deltas all very much green when you compare him to Dominic Olivier. So he is very much catching, and well, he's been, as I said, the driver that's been making moves here early on in the race. But one more, it shouldn't be too difficult. But you've already described how difficult it is to, how easy it is even to defend here. So maybe Olivier will pull up more of a fight.
I mean, this is it. If you defend into the island hairpin, that is the prime overtaking spot right there, is the island hairpin. It is very difficult to make any moves elsewhere. You can make them down into the Hislop chicane, and you can make moves into Lodge Corner as well, as your two leaders are pretty close to, not the two leaders, but third and fourth are pretty close together as well. So, you know, the moves can happen, and you can make those moves, but like down into the chicane here, you've got to be up alongside the other car on the entry to the braking zone of the Hislop chicane.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a compromise line there for Graven coming out of Knickerbrook, which will mean that Perez is able to catch up a couple of tenths of a second here on the way down towards that relatively big braking zone of Druids. You don't have to get the car all the way slowed down, just enough to be able to take that first apex, and of course that second apex going up towards then the deal loop, where it is a little bit more vicious of a braking zone. But still, none of these moves on the brakes can be made down into here, because the radius of the corners themselves aren't really all that tight. They're pretty wide corners coming towards the end of the lap, so it's very difficult to make moves down there. Basically, one of your only overtaking opportunities is down in towards turn 4 of the island's hairpin, where you basically just have to sling it. And we also discussed before the race, Paul, that you can make a move into the chicane, but it requires big commitment. Yeah,
I won't copy what James Hunt once famously said to Sterling Moss in an interview, but it certainly was a good descriptive of what you need to have to be able to pull off a move like you would need to do into that chicane. So definitely these drivers, that they've got to have that commitment and have the knowledge that they are going to make it on the brakes without wiping out the other driver.
Yeah, you do. You really need to have that sort of judgment in mind as they head through that chicane that we've been speaking of, and then up through turn 7 of Knickerbrook. You can see these Audis working their way around and up through that elevation change. And it's something that we haven't really talked about during this broadcast, surprisingly enough, because at this track you do have that quite large amount of elevation change, especially coming towards the latter end of the lap and across the start-finish line. That deer leap is called that for a reason. You do a little bit of a leap up there, and of course then you have the downhill section in towards turn 2 and turn 3 of Cascades as well. It really gives this track a lot of character.
Of course, this track was named after the hall that was on site. I believe it still is on site at Oulton Park, and you go down the hill here into Cascades, pretty much at the bottom of the elevation right now, but how it uses the natural lie of the land, it's an absolutely fantastic track. We've got battling up near the front. Actually, your two leaders are pretty close together, and they're about 2 tenths between them, 3 tenths between them, so they're keeping the pressure on. Here is Adicoba Lopez. In fact, we'll bring up that graphic there, but yeah, these two at the front, they're still putting the pressure on, and they've slowly been pulling away from Tim Graven.
Yeah, slowly but surely, but still not entirely secure right now. So if these guys decide that a little bit of side-by-side action is on the cards, then maybe P3, 4, and 5, and all the way back as well, might just get themselves involved in the battle for the race lead. So for Coba Lopez, if he wants to get past here, he has to be quick, clean, and clinical. But right now, it still seems like there's no opportunity for him to make his way by. He's just keeping within that sort of 2 to 3 tenths of a second margin, keeping himself big in the rear view mirrors of that number 8, and maybe try and frighten him into a mistake, which Mulebashek has done a couple of times, pushing wide through that island's hairpin. And so it's one of the main reasons why Coba Lopez has been able to catch up right to the back of him right now, whereas that gap used to be at least twice as big just about 5 laps ago. Copa Lopez, very aggressive entry there in towards Cascades. Nebelsack taking a little bit of a later apex coming through there. So differences of approach coming through turn 3. Are there going to be differences of approach into the hairpin? Well, it's a very deep lunge there on the brakes there from Copa Lopez, bringing him right up to that rear bumper of his fellow Audi in front of him. Look how close they are coming down in towards the turn 5 and 6 chicane of his lops. That's a big look towards the inside there for Copa Lopez, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. He made that big move with no minds to commit down the inside there. It's just to cause Milosek to do at least something.
Yeah, try and frighten him to go offline, compromise his line to be able to then make the move further around. It's very much a thinking person's track as this one. You've got to line up a move almost half a lap before you actually make it, really. If you want to maybe get the run out of Druids into Lodge, then you line them up coming out of Knickerbrook. You try and get them defensively going into Druids to compromise the line out of it to get the run down into Lodge Corner. Simon Povey, by the way, another recovering driver down in 9th place. He's right on the tail of Torres.
Yep, he is, and well, across the start-finish line they go. Povey currently in 9th place, and of course you have Jean Torres there right in front, and well, Povey has very much been gaining over this last lap or so on the brakes in towards Cascades, just having a little bit of jailbreaking just on that sort of early part of the corner. And here comes Povey then, slipstream on the way down in towards the island to happen. It has to be a move around the outside here for the British driver. Gets himself alongside, but that does put him under threat from Jorge Augusto coming in from behind then. Augusto, is he able to hold the inside line until that Hislop chicane arrives? That one is going to be a no. Is he going to go for the lunge anyway? Body language says yes. In actuality, it's a no. So Augusto will stay in line. So that's the big thing there down in towards the island hairpin there, but as soon as you attempt to go around the outside there, you're just leaving yourself open to lunges from further back.
Well, that's it. It does. It leaves a wide open gap, especially if you're going side by side through the island hairpin. But this is what I was on about. Get the run out of Druids here, try and carry the speed, and look to make the move to the inside of Lodge. Defensive line taken there from Torres, and moving across. And here comes the move. The big dive down the inside. A little bit of rubbing, and all of a sudden Povey has gone from attack to defense.
Yep, Augusto looking to try and secure himself more firmly inside that top 10. Is going to be a move into turn 1. It is. Augusto bringing himself car length alongside, or half a car length alongside. A little bit of contact through the middle of the corner as well, but Augusto eventually has to yield that one and down in towards Cascades. Now still following tightly to the back of that car of Simon Povey. But still no opportunity just yet. Maybe in towards the island's hairpin. Augusto might be able to do something. Wider line being taken there by Augusto. Povey very defensive down in towards the hairpin. Augusto looking for an exit, but he has all, the back of an Audi right in front of him.
Oh, as we maybe lose Connery there.
Big lunge. Big lunge down the inside of his lobs. Augusto, has he got that? Well, he's not completed it just yet. There's still the threat here from Povey, but what a move there from Augusto.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that on the replay then. And it's the run out of the hairpin, going down towards Hislops, and he's decided, you know what, I'm throwing it down the inside here. Brakes as late as he dare. He does just get a couple of wheels onto the grass there, but he makes it work. Great move there, and Jorge Augusto, hats off to you, Sunshine. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it requires very big commitment and a big something else, if you're talking about what a driver said a little bit earlier on. But there we go. If you know that reference, maybe drop it in the chat, maybe not. But Brandon Hawken then trying to make some moves of his own, then still in P6 after starting P9. So he made up those 3 positions early on, but hasn't really been able to make any further progress here. It has been Olivier on the defensive here in this particular battle. Despite those green time deltas there for Hawken, he's still not been able to at least even find an opportunity here. He's, it's been very well defended here by Olivier, and being a little bit of a roadblock as far as Hawken is concerned.
Yeah, it's great defensive driving. It's what you need to show around here. One interesting thing is that these drivers, they were about a second and a half behind the battle for third place. They're now right back on that battle again, and it's a queue of 5 cars all battling it out for that third place. Okay, they're not quite making the moves, but you guess that as we're heading to this last third of the race, the tyres are starting to lose their edge. Drivers are adjusting their diff maps. They're also adjusting the rear brake valve to help get the rear end turning into corners. So these are adjustments that they can make on the fly, as well as the brake bias as well. So they'll be adjusting the car as they go along to try and suit how much grip the tyres are giving them and how much turn the car's giving them.
Yeah, of course, a multitude of in-car adjustments available on these cars, and that is the same with a good couple of cars in iRacing. Of course, you have the standard brake bias setting that you get on most cars, but these cars also have a multitude of other changes that you just described to try and get them in more of a working order, especially coming towards the latter portion of this race as those tires start to get a little bit too much heat in them sometimes, and of course start to wear away as well. 7 minutes left remaining in this race. Next time across the line, it'll be 5 laps. Battle side by side for the back in the field, though. That's Bernardi on the inside versus Simon Povey. So Bernardi, he's got himself the position complete. Well, down in towards the Hislop chicane, and that's the second time we've seen that one today.
So there was a mistake from Torres, the number 10 car. That's what started this all. Simon Povey tried to take advantage of it, and he loses out at the island hairpin again, and that's what gives the opportunity to that number 7 car, Bernardi, to be able to go down the inside into the chicane. That's another position lost for Simon Povey. He's gone backwards in this race. Not everything through his fault, mind you.
Well, at least on the live pictures, he's attempting to go around the outside of Bernardi, coming through the last couple of corners of the lap, but is unsuccessful in doing so for now. Across the line they all go, so that's about the 5 laps remaining mark there by my calculations in this one. Bernardi trying to make a little bit further progress here, because he has Dalmas's Torres in front of him, and Torres has had not the greatest of couple of laps, and now he's finding a lot of Audis right on his back bumper right now. And Bernardi, is he going to go for the lunge here? Maybe outside line in towards the island's hairpin? No, he's not quite going to. Forces Torres to go defensive into there. Has to check up to prevent running into the back of him. Looks for the run off the island's hairpin, and Bernardi's got a very, very good one. Dalmas's Torres trying to squeeze him out on the right-hand side of the racetrack. Bernardi has to go back towards the left. Outside line for the first apex of Hislop's there. Has to file in behind. Look how close. He's basically pushing him through the chicane here is Bernardi. And now through Knickerbocker again, another little bit of a shove through the middle of the corner. Get a move on, Torres, he's saying.
We've lost Aldo Massa. He was battling it out side by side with Povey, and that hasn't worked out for him, so we've lost Massa from this race.
Bernardi.
Oh, look at that through Druids. He's trying everything he can to make his way through. It's not working, and he's getting a little bit more impatient as time runs out.
Yeah, just 5 minutes left in this race. Bernardi, he's going to have a good run out of the final corner. Up over the deal leap they will go. Dalmas's Torres, he's lost a lot of speed here coming across the pit straight. Still able to make it side by side then in towards turn 1. Deep on the brakes on the outside goes Bernardi. He makes the exit curb, almost gets crowded off the circuit. They both rejoin safely. Still side by side coming down through the first sector. A little bit of door rubbing down in towards Cascade. Bernardi, he has to file in behind, but still has a lot of speed. Look at that mid-corner speed, brings it back up to the bumper, and now the island's hairpin is the next place you'll have to look to see these guys battling side by side. Outside line for Bernardi. Is he looking to look for the cutback? No, he's going to look to commit around the outside here. Still very close off the corner, but look at the launch he's got off the hairpin. That is so impressive for the driver of the number 7. He might be able to get this one done in towards the Hislop chicane. On the bricks they go. A little bit of a tap coming down in the entry, but there's Bernardi through.
That was classic Brilliant work from the Island hairpin to get the run out the corner and then to get the move done up over Hilltop down into the Hislop chicane. Great stuff. A little bit of a hit check. I thought they were getting a little bit heated there, but certainly putting the pressure on. That's been where the excitement's been. I mean, this has not been exciting for the battle for third place, but they've not really been making any moves up here. So, you know, time's running out. 3.5 minutes remaining in this race. Some of these drivers need to be making some moves. Gap at the front, by the way, is almost half a second between your two race leaders. So these two, look at that last lap, exactly the
Identical.
same on the last lap. That tells you how closely matched Nevelsic and Koba Lopez is.
Both drivers setting a 1:27.447. On that previous lap, someone's gone off there. That's Cohen Klopman directly into the side there of Olivier down at the Islands hairpin. We'll have to get another look to see how that one happened. It's a simple case of, at least from my view of this incident, Klopman getting two tires onto the grass on the entry towards the Islands hairpin. And straight into the side of Olivier he goes.
Well, here we go. We'll get a look at this then. He's gone from one side. There's the rear wheel onto the grass, and there's nothing that he can do. Oh, that was a heavy, heavy hit on the number 5 car of Olivier. Klopman and Olivier pull away. Klopman realizes what he's done. He lets Olivier back. That's good driving from Cohen to be able to let that driver back through, but a huge mistake there, and that just shows how much of a tank these cars are, because it's only caused a little dent in the front left of Klopman's car.
Yeah, they're built to a rigorous motorsport engineering standards, you know, because the front doesn't fall off on these cars. But I'll leave that one to rest now. But Koba Lopez back towards your race lead, though. You can see him up on the screen for you now, and, well, looking to try and gain every single tenth of a second possible over Nebelsic. And well, you know, if we look back to the previous race where Nebelsic was very, very strong early on in the race, but dropped off as soon as those, you know, the latter half of the race happened. But now on towards the penultimate lap right now, he's still looking relatively strong as your race leader at this stage. So whatever setup or driving style issue that he had in race number 1 of this season, seems like he's sorted it all out here for race number 2. Koba Lopez, though, looking very, very strong indeed, and now he might just have a chance here coming towards the final lap of the race. Koba Lopez, he'll basically only have just a couple of opportunities to do it here on the final lap.
Yeah, but he's getting closer here. That's what he needs to do. He needs to take his opportunity and take it soon, because, as you mentioned, time is running out. Runs a little bit wide through Druids. That's going to compromise his line down here. He's looking to the inside, trying to get big in the mirrors of that car in front. Your race leader, he's led all the way through this race, and he's got one more lap to do it.
Yeah, one more lap across the line. They will go with 43 seconds remaining. Just one more lap for Koba Lopez to try and make his way by and crown himself the winner here at Oulton Park for week 2 of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. In towards Cascades, he carries a good amount of speed here through the middle of the corner, but it looks like Nebelsic has been able to get himself a better exit off of turn 3 there, and that will defend the move then in towards the Islands hairpin, because Koba Lopez is a little bit too far back, goes very deep on the brakes regardless, and brings him right back into contention. But another good exit here for Nebelsic will try and keep him at bay. It's going to have to be an almighty lunge here into Hislops if he's going to have a chance here, and about 3 or 4 car lengths back, I doubt that is a possibility. So single file he'll have to go coming through here. There's been an incident at the back of the field involving the number 15. We'll come back to that one at the end of the race, but it seems like here right at the front, Nebelsic, he has things on lockdown for the first half of the final lap, and in towards the final sector then Koba Lopez simply not too close enough here. Look at that entry towards Druids, though. He's gained a lot of time through there, but is it going to be enough here in towards Lodge Corner for the final time? Nebelsic, he's forced to go defensive here. Koba Lopez so deep on the brakes, almost contact to the rear bumper of the Team RSO car, but Nebelsic will hold on over the deal leap. Checkered flag is out. Nebelsic will win here for week 2.
Absolutely fantastic. Great driving between the two of them as they come across the line then. We will get a look at what happened further down as well. There's still battling going on here as well. We've got Purvey still involved in this battle with Gunes as well, the driver that you mentioned that had an incident earlier on this lap as they go across the line. So we'll find out what happened then earlier on this lap. Hopefully we'll catch it at the right point. We don't, so let's just wind that back just a little bit more. Here we go. It's into the hairpin, and oh, he got right onto the grass there. Did an amazing job to actually keep it out of the wall there, and comes back on right behind the car of Simon Purvey.
Yeah, well, Guinness there doing basically his best Cohen Klopman impression into the Ireland's hairpin, because Klopman suffered the same fate there, getting two tyres onto the grass on the entry to the corner. But what a hectic race, especially in your midfield. But here are your official race results here at Oulton Park. Cedric Nebelzik will win here by 0.185 seconds over Ade Kopelobes. A very close thing there for the race lead at the end of the race, but Nebelzik comes away with it, leading from the start to the very finish here today. Tim Graven will get himself onto the podium position as well. We've got David Perez in P4 with Brandon Hawkin. He does eventually gain at least one more position before the end of the race is done. He gets himself up into P5 with Dominic Olivier in P6, with Cohen Klopman, despite early issues, finishes in a solid 7th place. Jorge Augusto making some big moves in the race, P8 for him. Bernardi similarly so in P9. Juan Dalmases Torres, well, falling short a little bit later on in the race, but still comes home exactly where he started in P10. Nicholas Short, quiet race for him, but still gains a couple of positions up into P11, with Simon Povey being arguably your biggest loser in this race, from P4 all the way down into P12 here today. Quentin Guinness there, a last lap issue sends him down to P13, with Jake Johansson finishing in P14. Lewis Goodway P15 with Anthony Catt finishing in 16th place, and your only retirement here today will be Aldo Massa, 17th place for him. Well, that's the racing all done here at Oulton Park, but don't go away because we have the post-race show just after this short break. It was typical touring car racing here today at Oulton Park, which plays host to a lot of British touring car racing, let me tell you that. But in this one, it's Cedric Nebelzik coming home with the finishing position, the highest of everyone today. That is a very roundabout way of saying he won the race there for Nebelzik. Ade Kopelobes finishing in second, with Tim Graven in P3. I am Connery Maddock, and of course joining me for the post-race show, it is Paul Smith. And well, how would you rate the race that we've seen today?
I thought it was fantastic. Oulton Park is a narrow track. It's a traditional racetrack as well, so it's got those challenges. It's not got tarmac runoff, so one little mistake can cost you big, and we saw that a couple of times with Klopman and also Guinness as well on the last lap of the race. So it gives you a little bit of everything. As Joe Vinclock once said, it's like a mini Nürburgring of this track with the elevation changes and the trees, and it's I don't know if I've mentioned this at all, but it's my favourite track in Connery.
I think you've mentioned it at least 10 times since I've been in this TeamSpeak server, but there we go. Everyone has their favourite tracks, and well, one person that I'm very interested in hearing from is the driver of Tim Graven, who came home in that final podium spot here today. A third place there, Tim, after you started in P7. You've got to be happy with that.
I'm certainly happy with that. I've been having a good week this week at Oulton. Really enjoying the car combination together with this track, so yeah, and I think it shows.
Yeah, and you know, of course, we've had 2 weeks of this TCR car being on the service already, and well, 3 if you count week 13, but 2 weeks of official racing here on iRacing. How are you finding it? Is it as close quarters as you were expecting?
It's definitely close quarters. You can actually see the people that put time in checking out the setup, looking at how the tires actually work and function and what their optimal range is. So yeah, all the good guys showed up, and yeah, besides Jamie Fluke that was missing this race, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to see him at some point during the season, but you know, with the other tracks that we have on the calendar here today, of course, some people even, you know, the discussion around this race saying how great of a car track pairing this is. Are there any other things that you spot on the calendar that might just be fantastic with this combo as well?
Next week we're gonna see a lot of drafting, which is a first in this series. Let me check actually the schedule, because I have not checked further than week 2.
It's going to be Road America.
Road America for sure. There's going to be a lot of drafting. That's going to be as close as you can get probably, together with Monza. And then, of course, Donington is going to be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, we've had Oulton this week, and Donington not in the not too distant future either. Seems like the British track's really representing here in, obviously, a touring car series, so that is completely unsurprising. You have the rest of the schedule up on screen for you now as well, but, you know, Tim, you know, over the course of the race that we've had here today, you know, with the update that iRacing has also brought in for this week as well, that means those tires come up to temperature a little bit easier. Was that a help during this race? Were the tires on the first couple of laps much more stable than they previously were, or were drivers still having issues?
I was having issues the first few races after the update. I managed to get like an optimal range for the race early on in the week, and the update kind of messed me up yesterday, but I was able to manage, and I can see that most people have found the optimal range again with the cambers.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of tweaking, of course, still needs to be done, both in the setups and sometimes in the new tire model as well. Always looking to try to improve and try to find, you know, what is the best way to try and treat these tires, so to speak. And, you know, as this season goes on, more drivers will start to figure out that new tire model, what works well, what doesn't work well. At what point do you think that most teams and most drivers will have it figured out for this season?
I think we'll see it around mid-season. There's quite a few setups already there that have incredibly good tire wear and management. As soon as people figure out how to apply them on different tracks, we'll definitely see like a lot of people be very close, like mid-season. Monza for sure.
Yeah, Monza, I think, would probably be the easiest track to set up for, considering it just consists of 3 chicanes and a couple of high-speed corners. But, you know, still looking forward to it regardless. And, you know, as soon as we get on to Cohen Klopman here, is also waiting for an interview. Is there anything you want to say before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to thank sponsors, IMSA, the team Simplex, Quick Setup Shop as well for the awesome work that we've done in the past 2 weeks to figure out the tires. I want to thank people in my chat, the team, and of course you guys for broadcasting this awesome series again.
Yeah, and it is awesome from the first 2 rounds that we've seen. Thank you very much, Tim Graven, for joining us here in the RaceSpot TV broadcast. Well, finishing P3 here today, and that is now the cue for me to bring in Cohen Klopman, who's standing by with the one and only Paul Smith.
Yeah, so there we go. Eventful race for yourself then, Cohen, today. Just talk us through that one, because you started the race up there, second row of the grid, and you got involved in an incident down at the hairpin, first of all, which knocked you back to 6th. Just talk us through that first and how challenging it was to try and work your way through again.
Well, I started this race with good hopes, but in qualifying it actually already went wrong, because I had the potential for like a 26.8, but I got a big slide in the final corner, which lost me 2/10. So I could have been on the front row, but yeah, who knows. Yeah, that first incident was really unlucky. I wasn't expecting, I think Perez it was, to get to the inside and just tap me. I was a bit disappointed in that, but yeah, things happen like that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's when you've especially got such close racing as you get around this track, then those types of incidents can unfortunately happen. But then we saw you were in that pack, you were in that group of cars, all trying to progress forward, and then you had a big moment again down at the hairpin, getting a wheel onto the grass. Was that just a case of shut your eyes and hope you hit nobody?
Well, the plan was to like brake and get like a run on the outside, but I've never been on that part of the track, and like the grass really cuts in there. So yeah, it was when I knew I was going like to the inside, I was like, oh no, people are gonna hate me for doing this. But yeah, I apologized, and the guys were really, they could understand. So,
well, that's it. And we saw that you immediately, once you got up to speed, up over Hilltop, you backed off, let Olivier back through as well. So, you know, it's only fair to do a move like that. And the thing is, the car, I mean, visually didn't look to have any damage. Did it do anything to how the car felt with that sort of knock? 'Cause it was a heavy hit, was that?
well, this car is a tank. It's really built like, I don't know where they build these things or how they build these things, but I mean, it's German engineering, so it must be solid.
I think they make it out of pig iron and churches is what they must make it out of with
diamonds.
How strong it is, absolutely. But of course, next week then, Road America, how are you feeling? Do you like that track? Is it something that is going to give us a bit of exciting racing with the slipstream in there?
Hopefully it's like a bit more slipstream and more overtaking indeed. Although Oulton Park really suits these cars, only downside is you can't overtake, which I hope you can at Road America this, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, before we go, anyone you want to give a quick mention to whilst you're here on broadcast?
Not really, actually. Don't have any sponsors or anything, so...
We should get you some sponsors. How about RaceSpotTV? Get our logo on the car.
I want to thank you guys for broadcasting this. It's always good fun watching these back. So thanks for that.
Not a problem, Cohen, and all the best for next week.
Thank you.
Well, there we go, and long time no see there, Cohen, because we haven't seen you on a RaceSpot broadcast in a while. At least I haven't, and we'll probably will maybe when Neo starts back up.
No.
Ah, that's unfortunate. But there we go. Nice to see you again anyway. And, nice recovery drive in this particular race to get yourself back up to P7. So thank you very much for joining us. But that is all that we're going to have time for here on RaceSpot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. But before we go, I do have to say that tomorrow is going to be a very special day for us, because we are going to be broadcasting a show race of the Porsche Esports Super Cup live from the International Auto Show at Frankfurt as part of the Porsche booth. There's 6 drivers from the Porsche Esports Super Cup competing in LAN environment. Everyone else from the Porsche Esports Super Cup competing from home as well. A fantastic display of what's on offer here in the top tier of racing on the iRacing service. So definitely tune in for that one. That's going to be early on in the morning here if you're European, at least around about 8 a.m. GMT. And well, that's going to be free practice 1 start, and then you have practice, qualifying, and then the race at 3 p.m. GMT. So it's a very full day of racing tomorrow. I will be there, Paul will be there, and of course we'll be joined by Jonathan Simone as well. So join us tomorrow for that. Goodbye.